Good afternoon. Welcome to the October Safety Committee meeting. Let me start by first introducing Pat Warren, our new Chief Safety Officer. Pat, this is your first meeting. Good luck. Do we have any public? Do we have any public speakers? We have no public speakers. I think that's a first, which is very rare. I've never experienced that before. Now, some comments.
Thank you. I guess I've saved the best for last, so you're all in luck if you're here. Good afternoon. As you all know, this is my first time to speak before the Safety Committee. And I want you to know that what a privilege it is for me to serve with such great professionals as those at this table and across the MTA. The adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure was surely penned with safety in mind. And it is how I approach the safety improvement mission. With the idea of an ounce of prevention as a backdrop, there are three general categories of activities that those of us tasked with driving improvements in safety focus our attention. The first being providing technical input for capital improvements of the city's aging transportation infrastructure. Clearly, replacing signal systems, track and passenger cars, as well as shoring up 100-year-old tunnels significantly reduces the risk of catastrophic events, which are costly in terms of money, human suffering, and the authority's reputation. Here, an ounce of prevention spends well. Second, the safety team is focused on identifying and adding new technologies to drive down risk, and you've heard a lot about that today in the different systems. Systems such as PTC, positive train control, the communications-based train control system, or better known as CBTC, the addition of audio and video systems on trains and buses, the introduction of state-of-the-art maintenance equipment to help reduce the opportunity for human error, which also introduces risk. And third, we are working aggressively to improve the human component of safe operations, in short, our safety culture. Our efforts not only include ensuring the workforce does the right thing, the safe thing, aided through programs such as the Confidential Close Call Reporting System, or C3RS, but also establishing processes and programs which make it easier for our workforce to perform at their optimum, which inherently improves safety. Programs such as improved medical screening, hours of service, standards, and training all put employees and consequently the public in a safer place. Switching gears, as you're aware, the function of emergency management was added to the MTA safety management portfolio. As safety and emergency management are inextricably linked, it makes good sense to leverage the functions of both missions towards a goal of improved readiness. So with emergency management now in the portfolio, I want to give you some comfort in knowing that the MTA agencies have begun preparing for their 2018-2019 winter season. As part of that process, agencies are updating plans and procedures. They're conducting training exercises to review operating protocols and clarifying changes in winter weather plans. Here at the HQ, at the headquarters, we've conducted a preseason test of the Chairman's Situation Room, and like what we did before for coastal storm season, we are putting together an all-agency guidebook on winter weather preparedness, response, and recovery. It looks something like this. Clearly, there's a lot going on at the MTA regarding safety and emergency management, and there's always more to do. I'm excited about being part of that team that makes a difference for the MTA, its employees, and the traveling public. Again, I'm honored to be part of the MTA team. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I appreciate that very much. The Vice Chairman is amongst the safety officers over there, so I expect a presentation shortly. Thank you. First off, approval of the minutes from our July 25th meeting. Thank you. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Minutes carry. The work plan. Pat, any changes?
I don't expect any changes unless for some reason the schedule changes for when the next safety committee meeting is.
Okay. And the presentation on safety metrics with the agencies, leads.
Okay. So we're going to go down to talk about you have our SMS system, our safety management system. There are two areas that we were going to talk about this particular meeting, and one of them is safety promotion. And you've heard a little bit about some of these programs that are ongoing already, but I'm going to turn it over to each of the organizations, the agencies, to talk a little bit about what they have for safety promotion. So I'll start off with Metro North.
All right.
How do I change this slide?
Just click it.
There we go.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you. Just pass it on. Sure. So September 23rd to 29th marked the second National Rail Safety Week. It's a week-long event created by Operation Lifesaver to raise awareness across the U.S. for the need for rail safety education and empower the general public to keep themselves safe near railroad grade crossings and railroad tracks.
Somebody had to change it.
Where am I pressing?
There you go.
The screen. All right, so here's just a basic overview of the schedule for the week. So again, it was September 23rd to 29th. Basically, we just wanted to make sure we touched all areas of the system, New York, Connecticut, and also west of Hudson. So throughout the week, we reached nearly 8,000 individuals. All right, as part of Rail Safety Week, we held our first ever M&R Customer Safety Day. So here's some photos from the booth that we had in Grand Central Terminal. During this day, we reached about 800 customers, and one of the items we had was an interactive rail safety trivia game. So as you can see on the screen, we had a little wheel. You spin the wheel, and you win various prizes. So it was a pretty big hit. We had Shake Shack was there giving out free stuff as well as part of the program. So it was a good way to promote grade crossing and rail safety for Metro North. That works. And then finally, additionally, we also launched our first Rail Safety Week poster contest ever. So the plan with this is the contest is going to be open to pre-K through 12. So right now we're accepting all posters throughout the territory. And then the plan is to reveal 4 school winners in the first quarter of 2019. So then there's Metro Man and Tracks our dog. So that's pretty much it for the program. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks.
Good afternoon. So I'm exceptionally proud to showcase for you one of our long-standing employee safety engagement programs. This program has been alive at the Long Island Railroad for a good 25 years. And what really makes this program exciting is that employees nominate their fellow employees for going above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to safety. So I'd like to share with you some of the winners who were recognized on October 12th. So I don't have to do this? You go. Okay. So in essence, we had 58 employees total that were recognized at a ceremony on October 12th. 27 of those employees here shown on in the picture were recognized from our engineering department. And to give you a sense of what it means to go above and beyond the call of duty, I'd like to share a couple of the stories that go along with each department. So 2 of our structures employees were driving home on the Southern State Parkway. Traffic slowed. They noticed a trooper had pulled a car over onto the shoulder of the parkway. The trooper was engaged with the driver. The driver all of a sudden took off, shot across traffic, dragging the trooper with him and hit the median of the parkway. So our 2 employees got out of their car, ran across the parkway, and helped to engage with the trooper who had suffered a head wound. So while one of the employees was taking care of the trooper, the other employee with an off-duty New York City police officer actually tackled the driver and held the driver in custody until reinforcements arrived. We also had 2 track gangs that were doing work at New South Road in Hicksville. A car ended up being struck by a train at the crossing. These 2 track gangs called for the third rail to be de-energized, as is the case with a lot of our Long Island Railroad employees. They also happen to serve as volunteer emergency responders on Long Island. One of the track gang members also took the driver and positioned his head so that he could reopen his airway and be able to survive until the first responders got there. So to just give you a sense of the order of magnitude of when we say above and beyond the call of duty. Our next group of employees were 16 employees from our stations department. So in this case, the employees that were recognized from stations did everything from performing the Heimlich maneuver on a choking employee, recognized the symptoms of a stroke an employee that was engaged with them at their window, putting in their ticket stock, and was able to manage to get emergency response to the employee and minimize the effects of the stroke. We also had an employees that rescued customers that had fallen to track level, and we did have an employee that engaged and performed CPR on a customer at one of our regular stations. Unfortunately, the customer did not make it. But that gives you some sense of what our station's employees did in 2017 above and beyond the call of duty. The next department that was recognized, we recognized 12 employees from our transportation department. We had a train crew that actually witnessed an individual on the track stop their train and was able to prevent a suicide out east. We also had a train crew that recognized a broken rail during a heavy storm, very low visibility, and because they were able to stop their train, they prevented the train from experiencing any kind of difficulties because of the broken rail. And then finally, we have 3 employees from our maintenance of equipment department that one of which recognized a track condition in the yard and was able to protect the track and prevent further train movement and having a derailment in the yard, and another employee that prevented, that actually stopped or put out a fire on the tracks. So that gives you some sense of the order of magnitude when we say going above and beyond the call of duty. And the way that the program works, and I'd like to highlight the committee, so the employees nominate each other. The nominations go to a committee that's a cross-functional team from all the various departments, from operating as well as administrative departments. And this committee actually is the one that determines which employees and which groups of employees should get recognized. It's a very robust program. It is a labor management partnership as well, so all the leadership, not only from management, but from the labor organizations, participate in the ceremony as well. And it's just a tremendous opportunity to recognize employees. You know, safety is something culturally that's embedded in the organization, but these employees truly embody the spirit of going above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to safety.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Transit.
Okay, good afternoon. In talking about safety promotion, New York City Transit has established an employee safety call center. It's available for all employees to report unsafe conditions and safety concerns 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that's in addition to following established departmental rules and procedures. It's not intended to replace any type current reporting system that we have. It will maintain that the caller can remain anonymous upon request, and will provide a reference number to enable the caller to follow up the resolution process. The call center representatives will use a web-based system to route the safety concerns to the appropriate department for resolution. The system will track the process through to closure. Okay, this also supports New York City Transit safety management system efforts for enhanced risk mitigation, proactive identification, assessment, and prioritization of risks for mitigation. It will also broaden the scope of safety data collection and thereby strengthen communications as part of our data-driven safety risk management efforts to address unsafe conditions and prevent accidents from occurring. Thank you.
Thanks. Next slide. Who's got, there we go, bridges and tunnels.
Yes. The Safety Committee program, I think we can go to the next slide. So the Safety Committee program was developed to provide a framework for communicating safety messages consistent throughout bridges and tunnels. This provides a forum for management and employees to come together on a monthly basis to discuss activities, conditions that may pose safety concerns. Each facility has its own active safety committee. An essential element of the program is what we're calling a safety moment, where at the beginning of each meeting, there is a message that's consistent throughout the authority, underscoring an event, legislative change, and/or lessons learned relevant to safety. The topic for the safety moment is determined by our office, Safety and Health. This past month, bloodborne pathogens was a topic due to a first aid response conducted by our B&T officers. Our officers actually, they used their training and prevented a fellow employee who was bleeding profusely. The bleeding wasn't due to an occupational activity. It was related to a medical condition. They used their training, they stopped the bleeding, and the employee was transported. So therefore, this month, we wanted to underscore the event and also underscore the importance of universal precautions and the use of PPE when we're dealing with bodily fluids. So slide 2 talks about the membership that's necessary to provide for a unified approach to communication. And as you can see, these are the union delegates, engineering, facility management that are at the facility level, and they're all integral to the communication process.
Thank you. All right. Next slide, please. Whoever's got the clicker. Thanks. So next topic in the SMS process is risk management. And so what we're going to talk about today are recommendations that have come out of the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, portfolio. As you know, NTSB looks at accidents and incidents nationwide, and certainly we're not immune. We have not been immune to these in the past. Let me go to the next slide, please. So right now they have ongoing investigations that of which there are 5 for MTA agencies. Of those 5, we believe that 4 of them are going to be closed out within the next month or so, and that'll just leave 1. That's the Long Island Railroad's employee fatality that happened in June of 17 in Queens Village. Well, and we expect that one to be closed out in the June timeframe. As you know, it takes well over a year for most of their investigations, sometimes up to 2 years. But the good news in this is that we don't expect any recommendations to come to us. However, we do understand that there will probably be recommendations going to probably the FRA in this particular instance, which often have an implication to us later on as they go forward. But at this point, we haven't received any additional things that they think that the NTSB think that we should be doing, other than what we found out initially after the accident, and of course we put those to implemented changes at that time. The next topic there is what do we have our go back a slide, please. What recommendations that are outstanding right now, and you can see that there are 19 that we have out there. But the good news is through coordination in the last month, we're ready to close out probably 14 of them, and the staff there is recommended to their board to close them. So that's good news. Recommendations come to us in sort of 3 different categories. One is, of course, our own accidents and incidents, and the other ones are things that happen nationally. It could be a trend, for instance, a lot of track breakage out there that could be due to a certain kind of part or whatever, and they'll tell us to go look at them. Or it could be a phenomena, particularly a social phenomena. We know about the opioid epidemic that's out there. So in a second, I'll go over a couple examples of what we have open. And if you take a look at this slide, you'll see the very first one up there is Hoxie, Arkansas. Of course, that is not part of the Metro North system. However,
you just got here.
Yeah, yeah,
Amazing.
yeah. So this is a case where it was a fatigue issue, person on differing over-the-counter drugs and other challenges, sleep apnea, whatnot. So in this case, the Federal Railroad Administration, or NTSB in this case, put out a recommendation to all railroads out there, for which our 2 railroads were also asked to do it. The good news in this particular instance, and actually several others are on the same topic of medical rules and protocols and sleep apnea, is that, quite frankly, the MTA is leading really the rest of the rail industry in putting together programs that combat those things. So we should be pretty proud of it, and they expect to close that out in the next few weeks. Spite and Dabble, this is one where this is uniquely an issue with one of our agencies, and in this particular one, it was inward and outward facing cameras. And we know that we're putting cameras on the different railroad equipment that's in the Metro North, but as with the first one, it's a good example of MTA sharing lessons learned across the enterprise. As with the health standards, we've applied that across the entire enterprise. Yes, it went to the 2 railroads. The recommendation went to the 2 railroads, but also the transit system is benefiting, as well as bridges and tunnels and capital construction, from standard medical protocols. Likewise, with the cameras, the transit system is also putting cameras in, as both on the buses and on their trains. So this is something where a lesson learned for one of our railroads, one of our entities, is in fact being applied across the enterprise. So that's good news. And again, that's also supposed to plan to be closed here in the next month or so. The last one is one that we're all near and dear to our hearts. We've heard a lot about lately, is PTC. This is an example of one that's really a totally nationwide issue. Again, not necessarily our problem. It happened in Oklahoma, which was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak, with positive train control. But in this case, it's one of the 5 that are still open, and of course, when we close out that program, then that recommendation will close, but is open acceptable. So that's an example of the recommendations that are out there. The other 2, I guess 4 that are still open for us. One is our bolts for the M8 cars, which were asked to be replaced. They were discovered to be not the right spec during an accident. They weren't the cause of the accident. They were just discovered to be a problem. However, the risk low on them. So we have the railroads have a plan to change those out as services go on, and the NTSB has agreed to the timeline for that. So we're on track for that. And then the last 3 are actually all for the MTA headquarters itself, and it's about looking at data and looking at how do we take that data, come up with ideas of what we should do new, and then applying them. So, so that one's still open, and we're actively working on that. So, yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm a little confused by what you just said. If you go back to maybe it's your previous slide,
sure.
that had the 4 out of 5.
Can you? Yeah, go.
Right. The second line, NTSB expects to close 4 out of 5. So you're saying a couple of 3 of those related MTA headquarters?
Those are open investigations that are going to close. If you look at the second grouping, it's 14 of 9. No, don't change slide. We have actually 19 open recommendations. We're going to close.
Fine. You're talking about the recommendations. So can you just remind us what NTSB investigations are going to close in 2019? Because I don't have a catalog of them, and because they take so long to close, it's actually fairly.
Yeah. So one is New York City Transit subway construction flagger fatality in Brooklyn. This was in 2016, and that one's scheduled to be closed here in the next month. Another one was a Metro North derailment in Rye, New York, and that was in May of 17. There's also a New York City Transit bus strike by a private. It was struck by a private motor coach, and that was in I guess August of 17. And the last one that I haven't already talked about was Long Island Railroad customer fatality in Lynbrook Station, and that was just this past May. April, actually. Yeah, sure.
Any further questions?
No. So I have to, I messed up already in my first day here. So he asked us about the metrics, and we went right into the work plan. On the metrics, they're in the book. They were talked about earlier today during the railroad and the agency briefings. And so if there's any other comments on those, certainly the team here will be ready to answer.
All set? Thank you. Thank you all. Any further questions, comments?
Yeah, just one comment. It's regarding the commuter railroads and the next step after PTC. I've said this a number of times. PTC won't be effective at Penn Station, Brooklyn Terminal, or Jamaica. And I think with ultra-wideband, transit looking at ultra-wideband, and I've mentioned this to Phil too, I think that we should be aggressive about looking at some form of protection at those locations that would provide the same kind of protection as PTC, but allow for us to run the service we have to run. And next step too would be, providing some type of improved signaling system throughout the commuter railroads. I think that's maybe a next generation. I just find that to leave those places open where, it's only 15 miles per hour is asking for trouble, because a 15-mile-per-hour collision at the terminal probably would not be with a crowded Long Island Railroad and Metro North train, Grand Central included. I left out Grand Central, I think. that would be a good thing. So I encourage us to look, and I think bringing up here is important because it is an MTA issue. So I look forward to seeing something maybe by well, I won't, but it should be something to the board saying how we're moving forward in that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Thank you very much.